All right, Terry, we're going to switch out to Los Angeles. The helicopter of our affiliate KTLA is focusing in now on a new fire, as you can tell how intense it is.
Other apartment buildings and condominiums in this area.
We were talking earlier, Stan was saying that Mayor Bradley and Chief Darrell Gates have said that they're going to go at this in full force. I don't really see that. I mean, at least in fighting, couldn't we ask for help at least for fighting the fires, if not for the National Guard to move in? And as far as the looters are concerned, couldn't we at least get some help for that?
And the National Guard is right on the verge of being...
All right, it's been less than 24 hours since we've heard the verdicts out in Los Angeles, and in that time we've heard from the time the verdicts were released until now, we've heard from civil rights leaders and politicians and psychologists, police and fire people, some of the jurors and the defendants, and now we'd like to hear from you, your reaction to the verdicts. Our first call from Georgia. Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
It's really crazy to see how these people in L.A. are reacting to the verdict. There is no way they're getting these innocent people. You know, they did not pay. They shouldn't have to be paying for this. And I just believe they're acting unnecessary, and this is no way to...
Thank you, Georgia. Let's go ahead and hear from Louisiana. What do you think?
Hi, how y'all doing? I feel like if it was if the trial would have been like 4 black policemen hurting a white man, I think his verdict would have been different. I think it's purely racism.
All right, that's a feeling of a lot of folks today. Kansas, your opinion?
Yes, I'm calling from Kansas, and I'd just like a lot of people to realize that there's a new president that needs to be in office, and we're spending a lot of money across the seas helping other people with food and all, and we have our own people struggling and striving. Black, white, it doesn't matter. We're all struggling. And I think the world needs to bind together and realize that we all have to come at one, or the world will end soon. Thank you.
Another call from Georgia. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say this thing is a lot bigger than Rodney King. It's something, there's a war going on in big cities, and I think it's just terrible. And if this had to happen in Beverly Hills, you wouldn't have seen the way the police stayed away from everyone like that.
North Carolina's on the line. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment on the reaction of this. I really think that it's sending out a bad message to those who are out there watching. This is a very bad message that they're sending out, that it's okay to be violent and hurt people. I think that it's really bad.
New Jersey, what do you think?
Telling me that wasn't enough proof? It's crazy.
Thank you.
Georgia's back on the line.
Hi. What I was thinking was that I don't think that I think Rodney King got a bad deal, but I don't think that what they're doing is tearing down their own neighborhoods and burning things up is going to do any good. And those people who are walking out of those stores are smiling and grinning and think, this is a big old party. Look what we can do. We can get everything because nobody's down here. That's craziness.
Let's hear from Ohio.
Yes, I don't feel all this violence should be going on. They shouldn't have pulled them people from their cars and beat them and then robbed them while they were laying there bleeding. It don't make no sense.
Reaction from Canada.
Hello, I think it's very unfair, and there was a miscarriage of justice, and they had no right to find them innocent because it's quite obvious that they were guilty. And what's happening in Los Angeles, you can't really blame them because it's just really unfair.
Georgia, go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's patently obvious that the problems that we're seeing in LA are the same problems that we saw in Miami just 10 years ago, and that police brutality is something that we need to do something about right now. This is not the way to solve crime. We need to fight crime in a much different manner by helping these people out economically.
Thank you. Virginia weighs in.
Yes, I'm just calling to say that I think all this mess is going on down there. Rodney King should definitely be a man to speak about this. You never know what the change is. But when you're trying to make something happen, you don't tear something up to make something better.
A call from Georgia. What do you think?
Yes, I agree with some of the other callers. I think I definitely strongly disagree with the verdict, but the way people are looting and stealing and hurting other people, it makes no sense, and it's counterproductive, and it just shows just a total lack of class and values.
More from Georgia.
Yes, I just believe
verdict was unfair, but the verdict has been reached. I think we need to look at the humanistic approach and let the federal government do their part. At least give them a chance to show what they can do for the investigation.
All righty, and we'll hear from Virginia.
We won't hear from Virginia. We'll take more calls in just a moment. First, we'll take a break. We're going to switch right away to that building fire out in Los Angeles. This is an apartment building. The fire department is now on the scene. Moments ago, there were some, towards the back side of your picture, some small explosions. The fire department is going at this fire from both sides. Let's switch up KTLA, our affiliate out there, see if they have any information for us.
I can't. There are plenty of people out just to the south, standing on the street corner, watching the firefighters. You don't know if they've been evacuated or just the people that come by and watch. As a matter of fact, on all the street corners there, you could see people gathered watching. We don't know where they're coming from, but I'm sure they must have evacuated at least the adjacent apartment building to this one.
All right, let's take a call from Georgia where we're watching these pictures. Georgia, your reaction to the verdict?
Hello?
Hello, Georgia. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say that although I do not advocate violence in Los Angeles, I can understand why these people are reacting the way that they are. I do feel that we should react, not necessarily violently, but I think that we have set back and taken the injustice that's in the judicial system long enough, and to have it on film and for these police officers to still be acquitted for that crime, it's not fair. And although, like I said, I feel sorry for these people, what they're doing to their own selves, but if they thought that there was another way that they could get justice done, I'm sure they would do it. This is the only way that they could do it. I do hope that people will react differently than violently, but I do say that people please react.
Thank you, Georgia. Pennsylvania's on the line. Let's move on to Pennsylvania.
Yes, I'd like to know why that nobody is making an issue of the fact that Rodney King was committing a criminal act. The force that the police used was excessive, but they're living in a war zone every day with the things that they have to deal with, and that maybe that was a bad reaction to what happened, but still he was a criminal and he was committing a criminal act, and maybe he could have possibly even killed somebody with the high rate of speed that he was driving in, and that I don't think it is as racial as people think.
You've made an issue of it, Pennsylvania. Back to Georgia.
Yes, it's not a matter of Rodney King being a criminal or not. It's just the fact that we have to learn how to treat people as human beings. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, red, whatever color they are. It's not fair, and the verdict is disgusting. And we need to look at ourselves as Americans and as people in general and decide how we want to treat people. Thank you.
Let's hear from Ohio. Go ahead, Ohio.
Yes, I want to say that I resent this type of action being referred to as rioting, stemming from the causes that they do. We can see very clearly this is a revolt, and it will continue to happen. All the leaders that have spoken today on CNN talk of punitive action rather than seeing what this type of activity stems from. They're not speaking to the political causes that have this going on, to human rights.
All right. If you have just tuned in, the pictures we're watching is of an apartment fire in Los Angeles now being brought under control. While we take another call, this one from Georgia. Georgia, you there?
Georgia, I'd just like to comment that I think that the verdict is appalling. I'm very angry. And I'd like to comment on the juror that they interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
She said that their finding was not racist, and she made a very racial statement. She said that if it had been a bunch of white cops after black guys, they would have beat up all three guys. But it was clear that Rodney King was driving. And I guess there was a high-speed chase, and it was evident that the police were angry at him. And if he was defiant or combative, as they say, but I still don't think that justified the beating. And I'm just really surprised that this kind of thing could happen in America. I'm a black man, and I'm ashamed to be an American today.
Thank you. Washington State, you're on the line.
Hello. Yes, I think that the judicial system has really fallen down at this situation. I think that the jury should be investigated and find out just who bought them off.
Diagonally back to Georgia. Hello, Georgia.
Yes, I would just like to say that it's really a shame when your little kids are watching the news and they want to know what country we're watching. They had no idea that we were even watching something that is happening in the United States.
Thank you, Georgia, and that concludes this portion where we are taking viewer phone calls. We appreciate hearing from you. These pictures, courtesy KCAL in California, a burning apartment fire. The situation still not completely under control in Los Angeles this hour. We'll have more news in a moment.
Into that action, I think it was just, they were just waiting for something to happen so they could go out and vandalize and destroy.
And it's making it hard for us, like Boys Market and all those places, you know. Where we gonna go now to get food and stuff? It's just sad. That's all I can say.
Robert Vito's CNN Los Angeles.
Ann McDermott, you're still standing by, and obviously you're watching the situation from your vantage point. What can you tell us about what is happening in various parts of the city right now?
Well, police officials have told us that the looting remains steady, and in some areas it actually looks like it might be increasing. You see blocks where people are seen running in and out of stores, fires still underway in these stores. I know the term war zone is quite overused in a situation like this, but to be quite honest, nothing else seems quite appropriate. And for some of the residents, it is a very scary time. I have one of the residents here with me now, Coco Welton, a longtime resident of this area. You don't blame all the violence, particularly on the verdicts, do you? What is the problem?
No, actually, the violence is not really, it's only being precipitated by the verdict. This has been 2 decades in the making. When the industrial advantage was taken away from America and given to the rest of the free world, the cities of America were neglected. You see the result.
This is a problem of economics?
This is absolutely a problem of economics, and as long as people are not working and they're frustrated by the political process, they're going to resort to violence. We advocate that for the Turks against the Iraqs, but whenever it comes to America, we seem to consider violence to be something distasteful.
What is your take on the situation? How long do you think this will go on?
It's going to escalate, and when the charade of looting and burning ends, I believe that those who are armed and serious and dedicated are going to take extreme action, because this has been brewing for over 2 decades. They have not forgotten Eula Love, they have not forgotten Jerry Lee Amy, and they will not forget the verdict that was rendered for the officers in the Rodney King case.
Those names you just mentioned, victims of, alleged victims of police brutality.
Well, I'm not going to use the term brutality. I was not there, but they were victims of police bullets. And this community has been a long time in the making for a confrontation with law enforcement. And they know within themselves that what must be done to get the attention of the government.
Ultimately, do you see some good coming out of this?
Absolutely, there will be good. There was good that came out of the 65. However, the immediate result will be disinvestment. People will not want to invest. Property values will go down. There will be mass upheaval about this type of behavior on the part of the inner city blues.
It sounds like a rather bitter ending to this story.
Well, what has America done for its cities in the last 2 decades? We've had 12 years of Republican administrations. We've had neglect. The industrial advantage was taken away from us and given to foreigners. There is no recourse except to invest in our own country. If that's not going to occur, then we cannot possibly have peace.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Coco Welton, a longtime resident of this area, giving his views on the violence. I'm Ann McDermott, CNN, reporting live from Los Angeles.
Thanks, Ann. And just to update you, according to the latest numbers we have in the Los Angeles rioting, there are 9 dead now, 166 or so under arrest, and some 200 injuries reported. President Bush is calling for calm and says the Justice Department is stepping up its investigation into whether Rodney King's civil rights were violated. We get more from CNN's Carl Rochelle, who joins us now from the White House. Carl.
Frank, the president is in Columbus, Ohio now. He arrived just a bit ago. He delayed his departure for Columbus because of the events overnight and this morning in Los Angeles. The White House tells us that the president was up late last night and up early this morning watching the events on television. The president refused to comment on the verdict in the Rodney King trial, but White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater says the president The verdict left him with personal frustration and anguish. So too did the violence in Los Angeles.
We are concerned about any question of excessive police violence, and we are equally concerned about excessive public violence. The murder and destruction in the streets of Los Angeles last night and today must be stopped. Lootings, beatings, and random violence against innocent victims must be condemned, and society cannot tolerate this kind of behavior.
The reason the president delayed his trip was to make a telephone call to California Governor Pete Wilson, also to Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley, and to meet here at the White House with Attorney General William Barr. The president says the Justice Department is moving to accelerate the investigation into the King beating that had started some months ago.
I'm not going to predict a specific time frame. This is now an active criminal investigation. We're obviously aware that there's a strong interest that it be pressed forward and concluded as expeditiously as we can, and all resources necessary to achieve that will be devoted to the investigation.
One aspect the Justice Department will investigate is whether Rodney King's civil rights were violated during that beating. Health and Human Services Director Louis Sullivan was at the meeting here at the White House earlier this morning between the President and Attorney General William Barr. The White House tells us that Mr. Sullivan has been asked to put together a panel of community leaders from across the nation. They'll meet here at the White House on Friday. That's tomorrow. President Bush is expected to attend that meeting. Carl Rochelle, CNN, reporting live from the White House.
The anger is not confined to Los Angeles. According to CNN staffers who are out in the field, here in Atlanta there are some difficulties and disturbances as well. Police in riot. We're going to go to the president right now, who, as we understand, in Columbus, Ohio, is addressing the subject.
Other than revulsion and pain. And mob brutality, the total loss of respect for human life, was sickeningly sad. And the frustration all of us felt seeing helpless victims pulled from vehicles and assaulted, it was hard not to turn our eyes away. But we must not turn our eyes away, and we must keep on working to create a climate of understanding and tolerance and condemn a climate of bigotry and fear. Last night was tragic for our country. It was tragic for the city of Los Angeles, for the people of East LA. But there were small acts in all of this ugliness that give us hope. The citizens who ignored the mob, those who helped get the battered victims out of the area. There were people who spent the night in the churches. Many were seeking guidance in the wake of the unfolding chaos in the streets, praying that man's gentler instincts be revealed in the hearts of people driven by hate. And you say, what can we do? Well, before leaving Washington, I spoke to Governor Wilson, I spoke to Mayor Tom Bradley, I spoke to Ben Hooks and some others on this problem. And I also gave this statement to the nation regarding our plans at the federal government level regarding the court case. We have instigated an investigation by the under civil rights protection. We will do what we can from the federal government to help those small business people that have been just wiped out by wanton destruction. And I will keep telling the country that we must stand up against lawlessness and crime wherever it takes place. And regrettably, what is happening in the city, or did happen last night, was purely criminal. It was outrageous what happened, and we were all sickened by what we saw. On the larger issues, I've thought a lot about this, and say what you want, but it is important at a time like this to really talk about some old-fashioned values like respect for the other's rights, respect for property rights, manifest that respect in our actions as well as our words. We must make a compact with each other that we will not tolerate racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism and hate of any kind, anywhere, anytime. And not over the dinner table, not in the boardroom, not in the playground, nowhere. We must condemn violence and make no apology for the rule of law or the requirement to live by it. And yes, in some places in America there is, regrettably, a cycle of poverty and despair.
But if the system perpetuates this cycle, and then we got to change the system. We simply cannot condone violence as a way of changing the system. So we ought to change. We ought to try hard, change the status quo. And we got to do it peacefully, and we've got to do it thoughtfully. And this, I am very hopeful that the calm can be restored to this very important part of our country, and that goodwill will prevail over the hatred that we've seen in the streets in the last few hours. I am now switching off to what I came here to talk to you all about. Let me just first say a word about this city.
President Bush making remarks in Columbus, Ohio to the Ohio Association of Broadcasters there, obviously, on the developments overnight and today in Los Angeles. The president saying that what has happened in Los Angeles is a tragedy for the country. He made an allusion to the fact that he met with Attorney General William Barr before leaving Washington earlier today. The two of them, the administration, looking into the possibility of using some federal regulations under federal laws, under civil rights laws, to reopen the case against the 4 white police officers who've been accused of beating motorist Rodney King. Hillary?
Thanks, Frank. Ahead on the International Hour, the verdicts and ensuing riots are making headlines from Britain to Berlin. Western Reaction is up next. Own experience.
9 people have died in rioting that's
throughout Europe. Newscasters showed scenes of violence and death on Thursday. Not this time from Yugoslavia or Nagorno-Karabakh, but from Los Angeles, California. And it was closely watched in Moscow and Rome and London. The independent television news interviewed a British journalist who was attacked by rock-throwing rioters.
And I had to drive up the wrong the wrong side of the street at about 40 or 50 miles an hour, weaving in and out of bodies and avoiding rocks. Not everyone's idea of California.
But many Europeans do share an idea of the United States as a violent, racially divided society, an idea confirmed by the Los Angeles rioting.
I mean, my perception of the United States is it's very violent, and it's like the whole access to guns and the gun laws and the whole sort of gun industry over there. It's got a very powerful lobby.
Presumably it goes back to the frontier days, does it? When it was every man for himself.
The videotaped beating of Rodney King was widely shown in Europe. Many people were bewildered by the California jury's verdict.
Das Urteil halte ich für äußerst schlecht.
I consider the verdict the worst possible. It has been proven that these policemen have heavily mistreated their victim, and the non-guilty verdict is a disgrace, in my opinion. A disgrace for the American justice system.
There's only one way to describe it: disgusting. It's an outrage.
In 1981, and as in the Rodney King case, friction between police and residents of the depressed neighborhood provided the spark. More recently, increased activity by neo-fascist groups has worried many observers who've spent time on both sides of the Atlantic.
We have had our race riots, and therefore, while looking at what is clearly a very dangerous and tragic situation, we should be careful not to be, as it were, too self-righteous about it.
But many British people say racial disturbances as severe and as violent as those in Los Angeles could not happen here. One reason, they say, is that the U.S. is virtually saturated with guns, unlike any nation in Europe. Rob Reynolds, CNN, London.
Well, as you may have heard a few moments ago, President Bush called the events in Los Angeles sickening and said, quote, "Last night was tragic for our country." Well, it appears the tragedy is spreading. Today in Atlanta, approximately 200 students from the Atlanta University complex were marching through the city to protest the Rodney King verdict. Several of the marchers went through what is known as underground Atlanta, breaking windows and causing other damage to the complex there. The complex has now been closed for the remainder of the day. There are reports of people being beaten, and there have been several arrests. Specifics and more details we don't have at this time. Spokesman reached in Governor Zell Miller's office here in Atlanta say the protesters turned over one car and smashed the windows on at least one other. The spokesman says the protesters are marching down to City Hall about a block away. We will, of course, continue to watch the situation here in Atlanta as well as in Los Angeles. And still to come on the International Hour, anger in the streets of Los Angeles, astonishment around the country. We'll talk to a former police chief and an attorney with the NAACP about yesterday's verdict and its ugly aftermath. The rage that has erupted in Los Angeles is sadly no stranger to American cities. Los Angeles still bears the scars from 1965 when rioting exploded in Watts, a largely black section of the city, after two white policemen stopped a black motorist for driving erratically. A scuffle turned into a revolt. Ultimately, more than 700 fires were set. Over 6 days, 34 died, more than 1,000 were injured. Miami has known periodic violence through the years stemming from police actions. In 1989, during Super Bowl week, the city was terrorized for 3 days after police officer William Lozano, a native of Colombia, shot and killed a black motorcyclist. Lozano was ultimately tried and found guilty of manslaughter, but last year a state court overturned the conviction, contributing to renewed tensions in the community. And in the nation's capital, last May, the community of Mount Pleasant was anything but pleasant, as teenagers and young people in their 20s went on a rampage after a rookie policewoman shot and wounded a Salvadoran man who was wielding a knife. Not since the riots of the 60s have the sounds of gunfire and looting so loudly echoed through the streets of Washington. Only this time it was Hispanics who accused the police and the city of insensitivity and racism. This in a city that is predominantly black. Well, the grainy videotape of police officers beating Rodney King, the images stunned the nation. Today, the outrage stemming from the acquittal of the 4 officers is equally shocking. Rampant looting, fires, and angry crowds. The president appeals for calm. Black leaders demanding federal civil rights charges to be brought against the officers. Well, joining us now to try to put all of this in some kind of perspective is Joseph McNamara, the former police chief in San Jose, California, and Edward Hales, attorney for the NAACP. Thanks, both of you, for coming in. We've seen what's happened in Los Angeles, and now we're hearing that there's some indication of protests, largely protests, as we must emphasize, so far here in Atlanta. Do you expect this outrage to spread? Mr. Hales, you first.
Well, I think that people have sought to find ways to vent their anger, frustration, and sense of hopelessness in the wake of this unfortunate and alarming acquittal. We are proposing constructive ways of venting that anger. But I think across the nation, you will see people, black and white, attempting to find some way to protest this terrible verdict.
Before we go to Mr. McNamara, I'd like to ask you, what do you consider to be constructive and positive ways of venting that anger? What would you like to see people doing now?
Well, we have to show signs of outrage at this acquittal. We're proposing, the NAACP is proposing, that this Sunday through church services, people express their outrage. That's the first constructive effort that we're suggesting. Secondly, we want to get people to sit down with police departments and talk about community policing policies that will effectively change the way in which the relationship between the African American community, the other racial minorities, and the police has gone in such a terrible direction, to change that around.
Mr. McNamara, to you now, as a former New York beat cop, as a former police chief in San Jose, what do you expect around the country now?
Well, like Mr. Hales, I hope that disorder does not spread. This was a very strange verdict. I've been a policeman all my life, and if that was not unnecessary force by the police that I saw on the tape, I don't know what unnecessary force is.
So there's no doubt in your mind. Let me just interrupt you. I mean, you raise an interesting point. There's no doubt in your mind that that's a troubling verdict to you as a former policeman.
Yes, it's a shocking verdict, and as Mr. Hale said, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be outraged and to show support to black Americans and other minorities that we think the legal system failed in this case. Personally, I've never attended a demonstration as a demonstrator, but I will be out there this weekend lending my presence to what I hope will be a calming effect. Black Americans have every right to be devastated by this verdict. It's sending a very, very bad message to all Americans, and it's a day of shame for us in this country and for law enforcement in this country.
Mr. Hales, what is the message to African Americans in your view?
Well, I think you're going to see a continued sense of frustration and a fear that black people are viewed differently by police officers in this country. There's a sense that if you are in a confrontation with a police officer, that police officer's conduct will not be subject to the level of accountability that
would be expected for an American citizen.
Okay, Mr. Hales and Mr. McNamara, I hope you'll both hang around. We'd like to continue this discussion, but the International Hour will continue after this.
Checking the top stories on the International Hour, arson and looting erupted again today in Los Angeles, but nothing like the night of violence that erupted after the acquittal of 4 white policemen in the Rodney King case. 9 people were killed in South Central LA. African-American leaders across the United States are expressing outrage at the verdict. President Bush is calling for calm. Now for a look at the day's financial news, we go to Myron Kandel at the Business News Desk in New York. Myron?
Hillary, stock and bond prices are both on the rise. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up more than 15 points at 3,348. Big board volume is heavy, 191 million shares traded already. Our 4 other key indexes are also higher. The Treasury's 30-year bond is up 6/32 of a point in price, the yield down to 8.04%. Several economic reports were released today, and the news is positive. The government's main forecasting gauge, the index of leading economic indicators, rose 0.2% in March. It's the 3rd straight increase, but it is much smaller than those of the previous 2 months. Also, factory orders increased by 1.6% last month. And initial unemployment claims remained unchanged in the 3rd week in April, remaining at 404,000. That's the latest in business news. I'm Myron Kandel at the Business News Desk in New York. The International Hour will continue right after this.
Quickly recapping our top story, disturbances continue in Los Angeles following the verdict relating to Rodney King. As of about 2 hours ago, Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley gave the statistics as follows. So far, there are 9 dead, according to the mayor, 192 injured, and more than 200 arrests in the disturbances that began just hours after the verdict was reached yesterday. We're going to return to our interview now with our 2 guests to get some perspective on this. Edward Hales, an attorney with the NAACP, and Joseph McNamara, former San Jose, California police chief. Gentlemen, looking back on the verdict now, do you feel that there are implications in that verdict for what is the reasonable use of force? Mr. Hales, go ahead.
Well, I don't see any justification for the use of force under the circumstances, and frankly, I don't understand some of the summaries of jurors' accounts. Across the nation and indeed throughout the world, people know what they saw. They saw the excessive use of violence against an unarmed person, and they find it sickening. And there's just no excuse for justifying that misconduct.
Mr. McNamara?
Well, I certainly agree. I think the prosecutor in Los Angeles made several bad mistakes. First of all, he didn't put Mr. King on the stand, which may have given implicit influence to the jurors that somehow Mr. King was at fault. Secondly, the prosecutor agreed to have the trial changed from Los Angeles to a 98% white area where many off-duty police and firemen live. And so
is that the root of the problem?
There were no blacks. I think there were no blacks on the jury.
Yes,
and,
there were no blacks.
That should not have happened.
Go ahead, Mr. Hales.
With no blacks on the jury, there appeared to be no sensitivity to the characterizations of Rodney King. You saw through this whole trial a dehumanization of a man who was brutally beaten.
All right, well,
and he symbolizes African-American males who feel threatened by this acquittal.
I'd like to address to you, Mr. Hales, a very troubling characterization that some community leaders are using. They are likening this decision relating to Rodney King to the Dred Scott decision of the last century, which ruled that a slave in the free North was in fact not a citizen. Do you share that characterization?
Well, not only not a citizen, Justice Taney said in that decision that the black man has no rights, that a white man need respect. And it's regrettable that people have that feeling that in this society in 1992, that is an unfortunate reality. I would say that impression cannot be given any validity in this country today. There must be persons of goodwill who will do everything that they can to overcome that impression that unfortunately exist in the minds of mostly African Americans and other racial minorities in this country.
Mr. McNamara, back to you. I'd like to ask you what you feel the results and the implications, the consequences really of this verdict and the aftermath are going to have on police forces around the country.
Well, I think most police officers do not engage in this kind of conduct. Unfortunately, this decision can send the wrong message to a few who do, that they can get away with this. I think what's going to happen across the country is there'll be a sense of outrage which will require police reform. Americans will descend upon City Hall and demand citizen review boards and tighter controls politically on the police because they feel the criminal justice legal system is not having the deterrent effect that it should have. I think this is a period of unrest for us. The rioting is terrible. It must be stopped. It doesn't help anything. And I think, unfortunately, it not only hurts innocent people, but it also hurts the people in the neighborhood whose stores and businesses are being destroyed. And it does give comfort to some of the bigots who argue that this verdict was justified. So I hope there's no further disorder.
Well, I think there's something else that could be done quite immediately to give the sense of that justice can prevail. And that is for the Justice Department to formally initiate a criminal civil rights violations case against the department. Traditionally, you have a deference to the state court judgments, and we find that with 8,000 civil rights violations complaints filed with the Justice Department, perhaps 50 go to the grand jury. Well, in this case, the Justice Department can send a strong signal to that community in LA that they will enforce justice for persons who are the victims of excessive force by police officers.
Is it your feeling, Mr. Hales, that if the Justice Department does indeed take action, that will mollify somehow those who've been so outraged by this verdict?
I think it will go a long way in showing the proper signal to the community. Right now, what exists is an improper signal from the acquittal, and the Justice Department can do a lot in changing the signal sent that police officers who engage in that type of behavior will be brought to justice.
Okay, Edward Hales, an attorney with the NAACP, and Joseph McNamara, former San Jose police chief, former beat reporter in New York City. We thank you both very much for your views. And when we come back, first, has the latest round of Middle East peace talks come to a close in other news, and the heads of the Palestinian and Israeli delegations sit down together for a joint interview. We leave you with live pictures from KCAL in Los Angeles of looters at work in the streets of Los Angeles.
Okay, we are on CNN. We're going to swing around again.
And one final item, the Bank of America has announced that as a result of the disturbances in Los Angeles, it will be closing down at least 100 branches in that city immediately. We will bring you more details on the story from Los Angeles throughout the day. Stay with CNN. For now, that's it for the International Hour. On behalf of Hillary Bowker in London, I'm Frank Sesno in Atlanta. Thanks for joining us.
This is CNN.
We saw it being broken into. People are just driving their cars in and taking absolutely everything.
It's not just anger now, it's lawlessness. Looters take what they want as a state of emergency continues in Los Angeles.
From looting to arson, new fires still are breaking out in LA almost a day after the jury verdicts that first triggered this rioting. Hello, this is Early Prime. I'm Lou Waters.
And I'm Cheryl Atkinson.
Here's what's happening. As one police officer puts it, the situation still is out of control in Los Angeles. The violence began yesterday after the acquittal of the 4 officers charged in the Rodney King beating. New fires now are being set, adding to the massive destruction that already has occurred. Mayor Tom Bradley says the grim statistics so far are 9 people dead, 192 injured, more than 200 people arrested. Firefighters and police are struggling to regain control of the city, but they're finding it impossible to be everywhere at once. Heavy looting is continuing Even in broad daylight, as you see, Mayor Bradley has ordered a dusk to dawn curfew in the hardest hit areas. He's banned the sale of ammunition in the city. He's prohibited the sale of gasoline for anything but motor vehicles. About 2,000 Army National Guard troops have been mobilized. They're now stationed at points in Southern California, but so far they've received no marching orders.
And it appears the unrest sparked by yesterday's verdicts has spread to at least one other city, Atlanta. A demonstration that had begun as a peaceful protest against the verdicts degenerated in the downtown area. At this hour, police are still trying to maintain a tense calm. There are reports of several people being beaten. One woman describes what she saw at the underground Atlanta complex.
First, a group of guys, black gentlemen, about 500 of them, just started rushing in and said, leave now, leave now. There was one guy in the beginning and was going, you better get inside now. And I was like, this is my card, what do you want? And they went, get out of here now. 5 seconds later, they're right here, jumping on top of this, throwing everything around, grabbing every personal item as if all the merchants just ran. They took things? Oh yeah, all my personal belongings are gone, every bit of money's gone. All my stuff that I've had in here, my keys, everything. And all these clothes were just strewn everywhere. They just took whatever they could grab in 5 seconds.
Police have made arrests. Some of the demonstrators reportedly marched through a downtown entertainment and shopping area that we just saw called Underground Atlanta, breaking windows, causing other damage. That complex now has been closed for the day.
The racial anger appears to be playing a big role in the violence in Los Angeles, but today during a television interview on CNN, an unidentified juror from the LAPD beating trial said racism had nothing to do with the case.
It was not a racist issue. Had it been a matter of a bunch of white policemen out to get a bunch of black men, they would have indeed done, done damage to all 3 of the car's occupants, not just one of them. So no, racism was not a part of the issue in spite of the difficulties that are going on in the Los Angeles area right now.
That same juror said she and the other members of the all-white jury believe that Rodney King could have avoided the beating by cooperating with the arresting officer. She said she thinks King got off scot-free. It really is not proper for us to call it an all-white jury since there was an Asian and an Hispanic on that jury. I will go on to say that the juror that we spoke with said she thinks King got off scot-free and should be in jail now for trying to evade the police.
President Bush is condemning what he calls the senseless killings and wanton destruction in L.A.
The murder and destruction in the streets of Los Angeles last night and today must be stopped. Lootings, beatings, and random violence against innocent victims must be condemned, and society cannot tolerate this kind of behavior. There are some principles of law and of behavior that should be repeated in these circumstances. First, we must maintain a respect for our legal system and a demand for law and order.
The president met with Attorney General William Barr today to discuss the verdict and subsequent violence. The president says a Justice Department investigation will continue into the possibility that Rodney King's civil rights were violated. CNN's Robert Vito spent last night on the streets of South Central Los Angeles and kept us updated as the rioting and burnings intensified. This morning he went into the neighborhoods and talked to those who watched their homes and businesses go up in smoke and the police who are trying to protect what's left. This is his report.
The morning after in South Central Los Angeles, smoke billowed up from what once was a popular black-owned supermarket. Fires continued to break out, adding to the hundreds already set. More buildings burned to the ground. Some people fought blazes with garden hoses, trying to save their homes. Sometimes that was risky.
We had people come by in cars, hollering and screaming, talking about, we'll shoot you, let the fire burn.
Where you headed this morning?
Residents said they wished the police, who were much in evidence in the daylight, had been as visible during the night.
What we're trying to do is kind of bring some order to this area by sort of restricting access in here.
People have been real nice out here, and people have been very cooperative with us.
Less than a mile away, some other police officers might not agree. At daylight, they were stationed at a shopping center to stop looting. and were met with angry taunts.
Right, we all black people got to unite together, quit fighting and killing each other. Kill these
These people were burned out of the apartment building where they lived. It's now a pile of rubble that sits behind me, and they search for somewhere else to live. Children helped sweep up riot debris. Other children just watched and wondered. This man lived here.
It's an idiotic, very idiotic thing to burn up your own neighborhood.
A juror in the Rodney King trial told CNN the verdict didn't cause the riot.
I believe they would be incited to riot had we voted the policeman guilty. I just cannot tie the not guilty verdict into that action. I think it was just, they were just waiting for something to happen so they could go out and vandalize and destroy.
And it's making it hard for us, like Boys Market and all those places, you know. Where we gonna go now to get food and stuff? It's just sad, that's all I can say.
Robert Vito's CNN, Los Angeles.